you realize how ineffective that command and control and the lack of awareness you have sometimes as a leader when you make judgments that are based upon assumptions. And I think that as teammates and leaders, we go into every interaction and every circumstance, and we need to be aware that oftentimes we go into that interaction or circumstance or situation with a set of assumptions that may not be serving us and may not be true. And I think that the work you do and the work that I do oftentimes with activities and stories is to share the same idea, which is, if you can begin to question those assumptions and replace those stories that might not be true with the reality of what curiosity arms you with as a better understanding of people and circumstances, then you're going to be better in that moment and make better decisions and have more productive interactions, not just with your team, but with the people that you're serving.
Stay tuned. Coming up is our interview with Sean Glaze as we talk about leadership and culture. Hello and welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show, episode 407. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming and time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gasaway Virtual Training. There are 33 online training programs there for you to choose from. Some of the programs are live events presented virtually, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit the samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment, our interview with Sean Glaze, as we discuss leadership and culture. Hey everyone, welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. And today I have Sean Glaze as my guest. Let me tell you a little bit about Sean. He's a leadership speaker, team building facilitator, and author who delivers engaging experiences that ignite a team's performance. Sean has worked with clients like Cisco and John Deere, the CDC, and Emory University to increase collaboration, boost productivity, and build more positive workplace cultures. As a successful basketball coach, Sean gained valuable insight on turning talent into teamwork. And now he travels around the country and shares those lessons. Sean's conference keynotes and his custom team building events deliver laugh out loud moments and memorable takeaways that transform your people into winning teammates and more effective leaders. Sean's books, Rapid Teamwork, The 10 Commandments of Winning Teammates, and Staying Coachable, are entertaining parables that help accelerate the growth of a leader and their teams. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm impressing myself at this point.
Yeah, I always joke that my mom rates my intros.
Right.
Let's start out with your background. So, where did you come from that got you to where you are today?
Well, that's one of the most interesting questions you can ask anybody when you're having that kind of first introduction. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share, not just with you, with your audience, Rich. And mine is kind of an unexpected journey. I was originally going to be an attorney. I did not get into law school. I fell into an English teaching position, was invited to start coaching basketball and fell in love with that. And so it was actually as a basketball coach that I began to learn after failing forward and stumbling a little bit. You learn the importance of culture and how that affects strategy. Had good X's and O's, good skill, strategy stuff, but we honestly underachieved based upon the talent I had as a young head coach because I had completely neglected team culture and collaboration and all the connections that go into leading a culture and leading a team and getting the most out of them. And so that led me to when I finally learned some of that and turned a couple of programs around to then want to share with other organizations and other teams how they could hopefully apply some of that and be more successful themselves.
How is it that you got the opportunity to become the coach? I mean, was it like somebody quit and they needed somebody and you missed the meeting and got appointed, or
Well, I think like in any organization, it's the young guy who's fresh out of college and wet behind the ears that kind of gets the hey, nobody else wants to do this. Here's a way to get started and put your foot in the door. My now wife of oh goodness, of almost 30 years, Rich, was still in nursing school at Georgia Southern University, and so I was teaching. But I was also coaching 3 or 4 different sports because I didn't have anything else to do in the afternoon. I was more than willing to take on stuff to keep myself busy. So I coached cross country, and I coached basketball, and I coached soccer, and I actually picked up tennis when that coach ended up having to leave for a couple of personal reasons, and really enjoyed investing in the kids and the athletes and those relationships. But my ninth grade basketball coaching job, which is the first one I held, was one that was offered to me a couple of days before classes started my first year, just because it was open and the head coach knew me and said, listen, I can teach you the X's and O's. I know you'll do a great job working with our people. And I think a lot of times as leaders, that's the filter that we look at, kind of succession sometimes is, hey, we can teach you the strategy. We want to make sure you've got the temperament and the commitment to being great with people.
interesting question just popped into my mind as you were telling me you coached 4 different sports. Was the culture of the participants noticeably different sport to sport to sport, or was it pretty consistent?
That is a fantastic question, and appreciate your curiosity. That's something that I've not really thought about at length before, but I would say probably yes. I think each sport kind of has its own feel. Whether it is cross country being far more of an independent sport, something like soccer, there's a little bit less of an impact that as a coach that you have once you get into the game. They're doing stuff. You don't have timeouts to call and bring people over. And so I fell in love with coaching basketball, and that's where I really invested myself for over 25 years, because I really did love not just the camaraderie and the competitiveness, but the impact that a coach had, not just day to day in practices, but specifically in the midst of, kind of the competitive game situations.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about like cross country like being more like an individual.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that because I think like when I was in high school, I played I was on the golf team and I was also on tennis team. But golf is a completely individual sport. You're playing against yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's score is better than yours, you can't be mad at them. You
Right.
didn't play your best, or your best wasn't good enough, but you didn't really have. I mean, there were some team events too, but predominantly, you're out there solo
Mm-hmm.
and often walking along, not talking to anybody. I would guess it like cross country. You're running along. There's no one to collaborate with on what you're trying to accomplish. It's very individual, and
And nobody to blame when something goes wrong, which is, I think, in any team, regardless of industry, it's not just basketball, it's obviously any business and any organization where you have a team is if something's going well, everybody wants to take credit. Something went wrong, where does that finger point? That's a huge part of the lessons that not just I shared with those teams when I was coaching basketball, but that I share with audiences now. And I think that you probably do the same thing is, what part of my leadership led to that outcome, and how can I be better the next time to help myself and my team be better and get the outcomes that we want.
yeah. What do you, Sean? What do you think helps leaders become more effective leaders? Is
That
there
is,
is there
well,
training? Is there traits? Is it what's the sauce here?
that's the same thing that you deal with in making people more aware, right? I think awareness is the key. And when I first started speaking and facilitating, I was thinking about, all right, what are those elements that build a truly positive and productive culture? And I came up with 5 things, and I used a very cheesy acronym, GREAT. And honestly, my first book, Rapid Teamwork, is really about what do you do to build great teams? And it's goals, and you got to have clear goals, and you got to build relationships, and you have to set expectations. Then you have to have those accountability conversations to make sure you keep people between the guardrails of the expectations you set. you need to thank them for their efforts. And so that idea of what are the 5 areas of culture that leaders need to focus on was kind of the great teams concept. And then I realized, that not everybody on a team is in that position of authority or leadership. How can I have a positive impact on our results as a teammate, maybe without that authority or position of a leader? And that was my second book and second message, which is, what are the 10 commandments of winning teammates? What does it mean to be a winning teammate? And I'll often ask, and this is something, as soon as I ask the question, there's going to be a face and a name that pops into your mind. Who's the best teammate you ever had? And as you think about that, it's normally not a technical skill that they brought to the team, but it's an interpersonal skill that made them special. And those are things that we're all capable of emulating to be better teammates ourselves. And there are basically 10 categories of behaviors that you can focus on to be a better teammate. The most recent book in terms of building better teams that I wrote was Staying Coachable. And that's one of the parts of being a great teammate is to stay coachable, to always want to improve. And I realized that staying coachable is maybe the one skill that makes every other skill possible. When you go in to do a training with the people that you work with, the organizations you work with, the one thing that you're hoping they show up with is that mindset of being coachable. Because when people show up with their arms crossed and their kind of eyebrow raised, it's winning those people over that makes the event or the training or the keynote or whatever the program is successful, because ultimately our job is to make sure that people see the benefits of applying the ideas and insights and tools that we're offering.
Is there something that can be done to help a team member become more coachable or more agreeable to coaching? Because I'm going to guess somewhere along the way, since you were coaching ninth graders, there were some of them that were not
Yeah.
necessarily amenable to your great ideas of coaching.
Well, if you've had employees or if you've had children of your own, you realize that command and control isn't always the most successful route. And I learned that hopefully relatively early on as a coach. Probably went a few years of banging my head against the wall of thinking they're going to do things because you tell them, and they're going to assume that you know what's best. And those assumptions, certainly present day, aren't the reality. Oftentimes, as a leader, you've got to make sure that you're explaining the why behind the what, and making sure that you're enrolling them and engaging them and getting them not just equipped with the knowledge, but also willing to act upon it. And that idea of shifting somebody from being annoyed by advice to being appreciative and applying that advice is really what Staying Coachable is about. And the thing that I share in that program, the thing that I share when I work with teams is, the most important shift you make as a leader is going from commands to curiosity. And if I can be more curious, this is a huge part of you and your awareness work. If I can be more curious, I'm going to be better. And then we as a team are going to be better, because you're going to feel that much more included and valued as part of the outcomes we're both going to create together.
And how does a leader become more curious? What does that mean?
You realize how ineffective that command and control and the lack of awareness you have sometimes as a leader when you make judgments that are based upon assumptions. And I think that as teammates and leaders, we go into every interaction and every circumstance, and we need to be aware that oftentimes we go into that interaction or circumstance or situation with a set of assumptions that may not be serving us and may not be true. And I think that the work you do and the work that I do oftentimes with activities and stories is to share the same idea, which is, if you can begin to question those assumptions and replace those stories that might not be true with the reality of what curiosity arms you with as a better understanding of people and circumstances, then you're going to be better in that moment and make better decisions and have more productive interactions, not just with your team, but with the people that you're serving.
Now, along the way, you talk about something called the ladder of awareness, and that kind of caught my attention, since that seems to be kind of in my lane, but that's a new term for me. So what's the ladder of awareness, and what can we learn from that?
Thank you for that. So I go from what does it take to build good teams to what does it take to be a good teammate to how do you stay coachable. And I realized that as I'm doing the keynotes and activities and working with organizations, Rich, the one through line of everything that was kind of the elephant in the room is that teamwork and team building and team culture, everything is ultimately a symptom of leadership. And if you have what's presumed to be a great organization, but you're working for a horrible leader, people are going to leave that organization because of the impact of the leader oftentimes. Whereas if you have a leader who focuses upon building a better culture and inspiring and emphasizing the importance of teamwork and accountability and communication, collaboration, that team's going to thrive. And so how do you build more effective leaders so that those leaders can ultimately create the cultures that allow people to thrive? And I think that the 4 levels of awareness that build effective leaders are what that ladder of awareness is about, and something that you can attest to in the people that you've worked with in the past, and I know in leaders that I've worked with in schools and in other organizations. Experience doesn't necessarily equal more effectiveness. Makes sense? Just because you're older and in a position longer doesn't mean you're more effective in that role. Effectiveness isn't about experience, it's about awareness. And so the 4 levels of awareness, that kind of ladder that I'll talk about and what effective leaders do, is you start off unaware. And when you go into a situation, when you go into a new role, when you're that, kind of new hire, whatever the situation is, you're very much unaware of some of the things that might be going on around you that need to be fixed. And then the next level up is going to be symptom aware. Symptom aware is you see the problem. I'll tell a story in one of my keynotes about, I walked downstairs one morning and I was completely unaware of the leak that had been happening all night. Well, then when you see that the floor is completely soaked and you're kind of stepping into a squish moment, that's your symptom aware. You realize that there's a problem. Well, then the next step up from symptom aware is identifying where's that symptom coming from? What is the actual problem? And then you have to identify what is the true cause of the symptom, what is that problem, before then you can address what is a possible solution. And I love one of your quotes from an earlier episode where you share you don't want to try and provide solutions before you've identified the problem, because you're just wasting your time. So that idea of you and your team really climbing that ladder together, of recognizing every symptom has at least a problem, oftentimes multiple problems that are causing it. And what can we do once we've identified that to make sure we're implementing the solutions that are going to affect it positively?
Nice. I like that 4-level process. That makes it easy to understand. Is it possible, or no, let me say this a different way. So once someone identifies symptoms, what is there a process that you recommend for how they get to seeing the symptoms to actually identifying the problem? Is there a
there's the $64,000 question, right? Is how do you go from seeing the leak and seeing the water all over the floor to finding where is that leak coming from and what's the actual pipe, or where is it busted, or what's the situation that I actually need to address, where we're not just spinning our wheels providing solutions that aren't going to change the symptom. And I think that ultimately awareness is something that you improve in 2 ways. One is going to be reflection. The other is going to be feedback. And you can get feedback by asking people to be able to share information from you, or you can reflect, obviously, as a leader, by asking more quality questions that allow you to be better in the future than you were yesterday, because you're thinking about the impact those interactions and behaviors had on your team and your circumstances. But ultimately, that's, I think, how we improve awareness is through reflection and feedback and getting better, because we're intentional about considering some of those things that maybe we hadn't noticed before.
I would guess that in the work that you do and the keynotes and the workshops, you get a chance to have interaction with a lot of different leaders and leader styles, and see a lot of things that successful leaders do. What are maybe 3 things that you could say is a theme that runs across those that are effective leaders? And there might be more than 3, but we got to cap it somewhere.
Yeah, well, and I think that the simplicity of the book that I hope to have finished, sometime in 2024, Rich, is that culmination of what is it that effective leaders do. And you've mentioned in one of your past things, the idea of Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Effective Leaders and the tremendous impact that's had on our society and so many organizations. And not necessarily building off that, but the idea of effective leaders, I think, is something that if you're going to apply it to a larger group of leaders and not just leaders in first responders or leaders as educators or leaders in the pharmaceutical field or whatever else, then there's really probably 3 things that all effective leaders do. One is they improve their awareness, right? And that idea of climbing the ladder of awareness, that's the first thing. The next thing is with that improved awareness, they then begin to focus upon the right problems. And so the next kind of, the problem evolution of leaders, which makes us more effective as leaders, as we go from focusing upon less impactful problems to more impactful problems. And so, awareness is what you notice in the midst of your experience. But if I'm only noticing the problem with stuff, then I'm not as effective as a leader as I would be if I began to climb that ladder and go from stuff to then focusing upon my staff and developing my staff. And then I'm going to be an even better leader when I move from focusing upon my staff to focusing upon myself. And then if I become better as a leader myself, my staff and the stuff improves, but I'm still not as good a leader as I might be if I'm just focused upon developing myself and my awareness with reflection and feedback stuff. I think the final level is, what can I do as a leader to improve and focus upon the systems that I and my team are working within that are going to affect our productivity moving forward. And so that's kind of that next level of leadership, is what is the priority that I'm placing on myself each day to focus on. And I think that's where a lot of effective leaders become more effective, is not just in improving awareness, but improving where is my focus and is it on the right priority and the thing that's going to have the most impact on our team.
Nice. What when it comes to culture, we were talking a little bit about culture before we clicked the record button. So culture is a big thing, definitely in the public safety arena. You can come into organizations, you can see when the culture is solid and righteous and things are good. And you can come in, when I come in to do training, I can see when it's a little bit off the rails, maybe sometimes a lot off the rails.
Less than healthy, right?
So when it comes to the culture of an organization, what are leaders, look, I hate to turn this to the negative, but what are they getting wrong about culture? I mean, what are they missing about the whole concept of culture in their organization?
I think that is why a lot of organizations will reach out, is because they will say basically, Sean, we're having an issue with our culture. We'd love for you to come in and work on blank. And you can fill in the blank with a lot of different things that fall under that umbrella of culture. But in any one of the programs that I'll lead, I will always identify and define what is culture, just like you will with awareness, right? It's looking for the bad stuff so you can have make sure you stay away from bad outcomes. Culture for me is this nebulous term that if you were to Google it, you're going to find 8 billion search results. If you were to look at, in a group of 300 people in an auditorium, you're going to get 300 different ideas in their mind of what culture is. But culture isn't foosball tables and snacks. Culture isn't, the number of days off you get. Culture is, and this is how I define it in my programs, culture is nothing more than the sum of behaviors that are allowed and repeated in your organization. Your team has a culture because there are behaviors that are allowed and repeated, and that becomes your culture. And whether it's remote or hybrid or in person, whether it's professional or in your family, every part of your life, that group has a culture because there are behaviors that are allowed to be repeated. And so my job as a leader is, what can I do to help to shape and encourage better behaviors and better interactions within our team and from our team to our clients, so that those behaviors are more productive and more positive, and have better outcomes. And so the idea is, again, going back to those 5 things that lead to a healthy, high-performing culture, How can I be more clear about connecting people to goals and what they're doing every single day and feeling engaged in being successful in achieving those goals? How can I make sure that I'm building trust and better relationships and helping my people do that as well? How can we clarify those expectations so there's no wiggle room and everything is as black and white as we can possibly make it, so they understand what's appropriate and who we are, what our values are, and how they should behave and what's expected and how they're impacting others. And then having accountability conversations. I think this, for most of the leaders and teams that I work with, that's where a lot of issues come in, is either they've not clarified expectations or they're not comfortable enough in having those feedback conversations to be the guardrail and keep people on the road when something isn't being done the way that we promised it was going to. And then finally, thanking people or recognizing people. One of the most amazing statistics I think I've seen in the last few years is the fact that over 60% of people say they'd work harder if they just felt seen, if they just felt recognized for doing those things that they do, that sometimes they feel are just done in the dark without an appreciation. And so those are the things I think the leaders can absolutely take action on. And it sounds a whole lot easier than it is in terms of implementing, but that's where obviously the magic happens.
When you're doing your programs, do you do any coaching around how to have those uncomfortable conversations when accountability needs to happen?
That again, and I do offer individual coaching for leaders who sometimes do struggle with that. But ultimately, it's what can you do to build a culture where everyone becomes a little bit more comfortable. And the way you make people more comfortable and you emphasize behaviors and encourage them is what can we do to build a system. This is how we as an organization have feedback conversations. We're going to point at a problem, not at a person. And when you point at a problem, this is a recent blog on my website, that idea of that point feedback model is, first you ask for permission and you share, here's the purpose. Listen, I know you want to be good. I know that you care about what we're doing. Would you be okay if I shared something that I noticed I think can be helpful? Then it's do you share that observation, and can you do it objectively so that it's not you inserting your ideas, but you, hey, this is what I noticed, this is what you did, this is what you said, etc. And then the I would be impact. What is the impact it had on our team or the people that you care about that we want to make sure we're addressing? And is you asking them, what is the next step that you can imagine? Because if it's their idea, they're going to be far more invested in implementing that next step to go about changing and improving the behavior. And then T is finally making sure that you track that behavior. So it's not just a conversation that's forgotten, but you return back to it in 2 weeks or 4 weeks to see what is the progress that we've made and have we actually accomplished what we set out to with that first point conversation.
Give me that word in the acronym that you're building again. I was taking
Yeah, the point feedback, and that's something, again, we used to talk in basketball about no rear view criticisms and to point at yourself instead of somebody else. And so the idea of pointing at a problem is, if I point at myself, I control the outcome and the next thing. If I point at somebody else, I don't change until they do. Our situation doesn't change until they do. And so the idea of pointing at a problem is something, how can I take ownership of that and make sure that I am taking the initiative to change something that's going to benefit our team, and pointing at the problem, having those conversations occurs when people have had a chance to not just learn it, but as you've seen, and again, I love your phrase because it's certainly relevant to basketball, but absolutely to teams as well. Oh goodness, muscles learn from movement, not from verbal instruction. Well, I think we're the same way as teammates, and people only get good at something if you allow them to practice it in a safe environment. That's where the training comes in.
Okay. Let's swing back again. The point is there words that attach to the POINT?
There are. So P would be permission and purpose. O would be observation. I would be impact.
Hold on. I'm trying to put it in the show notes.
Sure.
Permission and purpose, observation.
Observation.
Okay.
I would be impact on the team.
Okay.
N would be next steps.
Okay.
And then T would be track the progress.
I got that one I got that. That's the one I got clear on. That's like, oh man, you went through it so smooth. I was missing. You were talking about each step of it. I wasn't getting the picking up on it was making a acronym that until you said in the T stands for, and I'm like, holy cow, I missed the whole acronym. That means I was invested in listening, but I didn't quite put all the dots together. What are some of the things that leaders can do to help improve the workplace culture?
Well, again, going back to kind of the original talk and program that I would share with leaders was that idea of building rapid teamwork and building a great team is about the goals and relationships and expectations and accountability and things. And those are all very important areas. And the question I would ask a leader as we're going into, maybe the implementation of some of the ideas is which of those 5 areas are you already strong on? Because you're doing some of these things well already. The issue is sometimes not just acknowledging and validating what you're doing well, but also admitting, hey, there's a weakness that I've got. You know what? I've not been recognizing my people as well, or I've not been having those accountability conversations, or I've not focused upon the relationships that allow accountability conversations to be effective, to become stronger and building more trust within our organization and across our different departments. And so, each one of those, I think, provides a different opportunity and focus for action steps that a leader can take. But ultimately, it comes back to that idea of awareness. What am I doing to reflect upon my behaviors as a leader and to get feedback from my team? So it's not just my perception, but it's the data that they're sharing. So I'm not telling myself a story that might be false about what the team needs.
Nice. We're going to bring closure because we're at about the almost the 40-minute mark already, which is fantastic. If someone wanted to find you or find your books or find videos or find whatever you have out there,
Right, all kinds of goodies.
Website and how to get connected with you, how do they? I'll put in the show notes. You sent me some links. So I'll put in the show notes, the links and stuff, but go ahead and just tell them
Fantastic.
some places.
Yeah, appreciate you asking, and I would love to be able to connect with your audience again. So grateful to be able to share the information, have a conversation with you, Rich. I'm so impressed by the work that you do with situational awareness and helping organizations have a better outcome because of that focus upon their awareness and improving it. I think with leaders in just about any industry, awareness builds more effective leaders, and leaders aren't leaders because of position or authority. They're leaders because of influence and impact. And so I would be thrilled for them to reach out. You can find me, Sean Glaze, on LinkedIn. My website, Great Results Team Building. My newest website is effectiveleaders.live. But if you're looking for me or any of my books or programs, you can find any of those in one of those different places.
Fantastic. Is there anything you'd want to say to the audience, Sean, that you haven't had the chance to say because I didn't ask the right question?
Oh man, that is a nice invitation. Again, I think we've had a fantastic conversation. We've bounced around to a few different things, and hopefully, I've not loaded them up with too much stuff. And there's something that's been a helpful nugget for your listeners and viewers. And if I can come back at some point in the future and share a little bit more about the next book when it's out, I'd love to do that. Otherwise, thank you so much for this opportunity.
There is one more thing. You had provided to me something called toolbox stuff. Tell us what that's about. Because I'm going to put the
on
link
the
in
Great
show
Results
notes.
team building site. I've got one of the things that I always share with leaders and teammates following an event is the opportunity to get completely free access to my toolbox of resources. And that is not just, kind of book information and audio stuff. It's printable handouts and activities and resources for leaders to be able to use to continue to build and grow and sustain excellence on their teams with their cultures. And so if you go to toolboxstuff.com, or if you go to Great Results Team Building and scroll down to where you see the toolbox, you can sign up with your email to get access to that. And there's over 60 different resources and all kinds of links that are really great opportunities for leaders to grow themselves and their teams moving forward.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that resource with our listeners and our viewers. Sean, I appreciate you coming on as a guest. I appreciate the work that you're doing for organizations. I encourage those who are my listeners and viewers whose organization might be struggling some with leadership and culture. And I know you're out there, you know I'm talking to you. Reach out to Sean, to go to his website, see some of the things he has to offer, watch some of his videos, get a book, and maybe even bring him in to do a session for your organization or to keynote your conference. So, Sean, thanks for being with me today.
Dr. Gasaway, it has been absolutely an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean Glaze, for sharing your passion about leadership and culture. It's hard to believe that we're almost through the first quarter of 2024. Wow, this year is screaming by. Here's some exciting news to share. In January, we added another master instructor to our cadre, Dr. Stephen Gillespie. Steve started his public safety career in 1993, and he's currently a professor at the Columbia Southern University College of Safety and Emergency Services, teaching fire service and leadership courses to current and aspiring leaders. Dr. Gillespie's research focused on increasing knowledge transfer and decision-making in high-consequence, time-compressed environments. Dr. Gillespie has presented on topics ranging from the use of simulation technology, decision-making, and knowledge transfer in the United States, Canada, and in Asia. Dr. Gillespie has held all ranks within the fire service, has served as a fire chief for 2 organizations, and prior to joining our team, served as the statewide Incident Management Program Chief for the Colorado Department of Transportation. Dr. Gillespie earned his Doctor of Education degree in Organizational Leadership and Development and a Master's of Science degree in Executive Leadership. He also has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Organizational Leadership and an Associate's of Science in Fire Science Technology. Dr. Gillespie is also a certified self-defense instructor. Welcome aboard, Steve. We're glad to have you. If you're interested in joining us for an upcoming program, here's where you can find us. On April 13th, I'll be delivering a half-day situational awareness program and a half-day firefighter safety program for the South Hills Area Council of Governments. This is the second program that I have delivered for SHACOG. Thank you to Mount Lebanon Fire Chief Nick Sahida for arranging this wonderful opportunity. On April 15th, I'll be delivering a program for the Wintersville Fire Department in Ohio. And this is the 4th program that I've done for Wintersville. So thank you to Fire Chief Rob Harrington for the opportunity to return and share a valuable safety message with your members and members from around the Wintersville area. On April 16th, I will be delivering a program for the Western Reserve Fire Protection District in Poland, Ohio. This is also the 4th program that I've done for the Western Reserve Fire Protection District. Thank you, Fire Chief Chip Comstock, for the opportunity to return and share a valuable safety message with your members and members from around your region. On April 17th, I'll be delivering a program for the Steel Valley Fire Chiefs Association, hosted by the Swissvale Fire Department. This will be the 6th program that I have done for Swissvale. So thank you, Fire Chief Clyde Wilhelm, for the opportunity to return and share a valuable message with the fire chiefs from the Pittsburgh Steel Valley region. On April 19 and 20, Master Instructor Steve Gillespie and I will be delivering 2 programs for the Taos County Fire Department, and we'll be doing that in Red River, New Mexico. I am especially excited about this program as New Mexico was the only state in the United States where I had not yet presented a situational awareness program. So next month, all of that changes, and I can check off the 50th state. And our master instructors are working hard to add their own programs as well. Collectively, they've had more than 40 programs scheduled this year so far. You can always see the list of our upcoming programs on the SA Matters website. I also want to take a moment, as I often do, to thank the hosts of a few recent programs and consultations. On January 22nd through February 2nd, Certified Master Instructor Drew Moldenhauer was presenting at Syncrude Refinery in Fort McMurray, Alberta. We've worked with Syncrude since 2017, delivering periods of high vulnerability training programs where we help their process operators with the skills to have better situational awareness and to improve their high risk decision making. On February 5 through 9, Certified Master Instructor Drew Moldenhauer was at the Suncor Edmonton Refinery in Edmonton, Alberta. Suncor is the parent company to Syncrude. And since Syncrude has experienced a fundamental change in their organizational culture, as a result of our training, the program is now being rolled out to all the other Suncor refineries. And this will have been our third visit to Suncor Edmonton. On February 10th, I was in Calgary, Alberta, delivering a program for the Canada Task Force 2. These men and women are an elite team of responders who activate for natural and man-made disasters worldwide. And this was my first time presenting to this group, and it was a fantastic visit. On February 29th, I was at the Center for Public Safety Excellence Conference in Orlando, Florida. And this was the 8th time I have presented for the CPSE Excellence Conference. So thank you for those opportunities. On March 1 and 2, Master Instructor Steve Gillespie and I were at the Spotsylvania Volunteer Fire Department in Virginia. And this was the second program that I have delivered for the Spotsylvania Volunteer Fire Department. So thank you to Fire Chief Brad Williams and to the fire company president, Tim Gates, for your wonderful hospitality. On March 4 and 5, Master Instructor Steve Gillespie and I were at the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute's National Fire Service Staff and Command Program in Annapolis, Maryland. And remarkably, this was the 22nd time I've presented for the Staff and Command Program. So thank you to Director Cox, Andy Levy, and Jim Hearn for your wonderful hospitality and your faith and confidence in my message. If you're interested in hosting a live event or a virtual program, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the SA Matters homepage, and I'll give you a call. Finally, remember to check out the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 407 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to Sean Glaze for sharing your powerful message about leadership and culture. Thank you to our viewers and listeners for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.